All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask Billy to do roll call.
Well, I have been taking attendance while we're doing this, and we now have 9 commissioners here. I see Denise, Jam, myself, Sue Kerr, Lenny Orbovich, Richard Parsakian, Sarah Rosso, and Guillermo, and Marcus. And just so everyone does realize, I do record the commissioners who are in attendance at the beginning of the minutes. So there's a record every month.
Thanks, Billy. So next up, we have reading and approval of the minutes. So do we want to move into that next portion of the agenda to make sure we get our minutes approved from last month?
Yeah, as the secretary, I'll make a motion that the minutes that were distributed by email are approved. If there's a second, we can discuss changes.
There's a typo.
Okay, tell me.
In section 4 under unfinished business, D, Sue Kerr reported that the meeting with the Pirates regarding the Big and Rich concert should be close to being scheduled, not closed. Very tiny, but
The teachers on the call appreciate you.
Sue Kerr appreciates you too.
Thanks, Richard. Anyone else? All right, we had a motion from Billy. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Lenny, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thanks. So next we're going to move into reports of officers, boards, and standing committees. So we'll start with the co-chair report. I'll just quickly start by acknowledging the vacancy of the co-chair position and thank Christopher Robinson for all of his work in supporting the commission and everything that he did to support this work. He's not leaving, but he did step down from his co-chair role. So we just wanted to make sure we took a moment to thank him for that. And of course, announce also that we will need to replace that third co-chair role for someone to fill. And the second announcement is we need to start the selection process for the vacant co-chair. So that will mean that the nomination and election committee will be active for the June meeting. So I want to see if we have any volunteers this evening. I know, Lenny, you've helped in the past. We've reached out. Are you willing to help? Is there anyone else willing to help?
I am willing.
I see also Jam is willing to help us out as well. Very good. Thank you both. It's helpful that we have 2 people so that the results can go to more than 1 person. So hopefully that will happen seamlessly. All right. I am trying to move a little quickly to catch us up for some time to get into some discussion. So if I'm moving too quickly, please let me know. But that is intentional at this point. So next up is Guillermo with the treasurer's report. Guillermo, do you have a report for us?
Basically, my report is that there's no changes since the last meeting. We're waiting to hear from Maria on feedback of the last questions that were made that is stated in the minutes regarding the budget and the means of use of the budget and whether or not we need to have some structure in place. Since she's not in attendance, I think we can safely say that once we hear from Maria, hopefully for the next meeting, we'll have a better update on the budget.
Great, thank you, Guillermo. All right, next up, Marcus, are you able to give us an outreach coordinator report?
Yes, I can. So the first point, just about the Facebook policies. So Sue and I have been working with City Law to provide like concrete examples, more or less, of different types of language that we wouldn't like to see on our social media page. And specifically, we've been talking about Facebook. And so part of City Law's request after that meeting was to provide concrete examples. So really specific language in terms of like slurs and things like that that we would not necessarily like to see on our social media page. You know, generally they shared with us that deleting posts or comments is not best practice, but you know, you can potentially hide them depending on the types and character of those comments. So we worked on a list. I'm going to send that over to City Law tomorrow. But you know, if anyone would like to participate, just let me know. I know it's a bit of a triggering exercise in terms of generating some of these comments and language, but hopefully the thoroughness will help us to be able to have a social media that I think is robust enough to handle different things. And additionally, the city law is also kind of working on a larger policy for boards, authorities, and commissions. So hopefully that will also help us start to get on the same page. And then Sue, I'll pause there if there's anything I missed that you'd like to add on that topic.
I just want to add that this isn't a guideline. I mean, they're giving us directives, but this is compliance with the First Amendment. So there is a category of speech that is considered protected, and then there's categories that are not protected, and it's very nuanced. So a lot of this is going to require us having to go to the city solicitor's office to ask if we can hide comments. We cannot block or delete anything on our Facebook page, no matter what. Only Facebook can do that. So it's going to require due diligence by all of us to keep an eye out, because we know that this isn't just annoying, that there can be real harm. And it's not been fun coming up with I'm sure we haven't come up with a complete list of all the absolutely horrible things people can say. And some of them are perfectly legal. So we're biting off a lot here. And if you have any comments on that, I personally would like to hear them, because there's going to be things that offend you and we can't do anything about it.
So Sue, will this Facebook page then be open to any comments the public wants to make, or will the administrator of the Facebook page have control over content?
No. Well, I should say, yes, it will be open to anyone. We are not allowed as a city commission to censor people's speech. Things that are considered protected speech must be allowed to stand. Things that are considered not protected, which would be what they call fighting words in a rough form. So if someone comes in there and attacks somebody with virulent, nasty comments, that we can't take it down, but we can hide it. That's going to require a lot of monitoring by those of us. And then this is going to become citywide policy for all of the boards and commissions. So luckily, but what might be offensive to the art commission may not be offensive to our commission. So there's a lot of, you can see how complicated this could be.
It's going to be an enormous task, because we know what will be coming.
Yes. So I'm going to just give an example, is that I asked the city solicitor if someone used the phrase, a trans woman is a man in a skirt, would that be considered protected or unprotected? And they didn't know. But we did explain how that does tie into dysphoria, or could potentially, and could actually cause harm to other people reading it. And so that's something that they have to research. So we might not even have answers for a couple months. So I think Marcus has just left the page just sort of sitting there right now, so we don't have to go down that path. But I've been researching this with GLAD, with ACLU, with the Southern Poverty Law Center, and it's incredibly complicated. But we have to defer to protecting people's First Amendment rights and still balancing the health and welfare of the people that may read the page. Because what are we going to do? I mean, that's what I don't understand. If we can't even hide a comment, what do we do? Do we have an automatic response that we put up to say we are aware that this may be offensive, whatever, so that some random person comes and reads it and thinks, oh my God, why are they allowing this stuff to stay up? You know, and they're not going to go read our about page or our policies page. So
I think this also will be a good example of showing how the public understands this group and this community. And that's really one of the things perhaps that we also want to happen, so that we can actually make a case of it and actually, even be able to have some kind of legal recommendations against it, because that's really a problem.
My personal opinion is that I would suggest that we not start this until after Pride because it's so incendiary. I know we want to communicate with the public, but it's so complicated. And then that means that Marcus and I will spend the whole month of June on Facebook monitoring this page. And that's not fair to us or to the community. So, and I don't think this
Bernie
city
has a stand up.
Are we required to allow comments?
Yes.
Can we have any, we can't just have a strictly informational Facebook page?
I do not think Facebook allows you to,
Okay, well, yeah.
you can set Facebook to have words where comments are hidden automatically. So you could hide slur. We can't do that, but I, as like my private Facebook page, I can do that. So, but Facebook doesn't operate like that. It's not like
We're not able to set up in the preferences or however Facebook works that we don't, that there's no commenting on posts.
no. That's one of the big issues with Facebook corporate, is that there's no way to communicate with the public and avoid having to wade into the comments.
It sounds like we have a decent start. I do want to encourage everybody to take a look, that's willing to take a look at some of those comments, so that we can make sure that we have a robust representation. And I also think it makes sense that, we're not calling for a vote here, but in terms of timeline and strategy to get this done, it sounds reasonable that this would be something that would happen later in the summer months and not trying to happen before Pride. So is Marcus, are you able to join us and share out that list of folks if they volunteer? Or do you want to just receive comments from folks, or how do we want to manage this process to not create overwhelm for you and have you have to be like a person who gets a bunch of random emails from commissioners? Is there a Google document that folks could share comments to, things like that? Like, how do we best manage input from others at this point?
Yeah, that's a good question, Sarah. I would say I have the Google Doc does have kind of instructions and kind of just a general like warning. There is a separation between some of the more explicit examples that we provided and more generalized like concepts, for lack of a better way to say it, that people could provide. So that might be easiest. I'm thinking if I send around a document and I can send that to the group after this meeting. But if everyone's okay with that option, then I can do that. I'm also happy to take, comments if you send them to me individually, but I can just give you both options and then choose whichever may work best for you.
Great, thanks, Marcus. And I see you also have another point around public comment.
I do. So we had talked, so part of this discussion, I think, will continue when we talk about the in-person meeting, but more generally about public comment. I talked to the URA. So the URA, Urban Redevelopment Authority, does do public comment at our board meetings, and it's a pretty straightforward process similar to the city. So I took a bunch of notes from that, but one of the highlights from that meeting is that they use a jot form process that we can create as well to collect public comment. And so what we'll be able to do is I think our plan we had initially discussed was about taking written comment, and we can have that written comment and then present at each meeting. So I'm putting together guidelines. I think with the executive committee, I'll share that again. And we can kind of go through that to see what we would like to look at. But I think the goal was to start using written comment soon, and hopefully at this June meeting. But the one caveat is that if we want to take non-written comments, so any kind of live comment, that becomes a little bit trickier if we are doing in-person meetings, specifically those in-person meetings that are not at the city. So that's just something we'll think about too after we discuss that, but that's just the highlights there.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Sue, for the updates on outreach. Next up, we have the secretary report, Billy.
I will just let people know that the approved minutes are posted in the Google Drive, as well as the bylaws, and created folders by year to deposit the minutes when they after they are approved. So even though you get them by email, you don't have to keep your own personal library unless you want to, of course. But the ones that have been approved will be on the Google Drive. So when I send out the, maybe what I'll do is when I post the newly approved April minutes, I'll send the link also to everyone again if you don't have it to get to the Google Drive. That's the part that always trips me up. Whenever I want to get there, I have to search how to get there. At some point, when we have a functioning website, a Google Drive won't be as important, at least for this aspect, that we will just have, you know, a sub-page that where people can go and get the public documents that the commission has generated. I also want to, though, since I have the floor for a moment, that was my full secretary report, but I want to make a motion to amend our bylaws. Seems like it's something that is becoming a habit of mine, but there's nevertheless there was an emailed proposed amendment to the bylaws, and I make a motion to amend them as per the email, and rather than me reading it right now, but it is in related to changing the eligibility requirements of co-chairs in a way that lessens the restrictions on there. And if there's a second, I'll speak to it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, when we developed our bylaws, we wrote into the bylaws that the position of a co-chair shall not be held by a member, meaning a commissioner, employed or representing any city of Pittsburgh department or authority, including offices held by elected officials. And that, for us, because we also simultaneously created 6 officer positions on a commission that could be by the legislation be as small as 11. The legislation says there'll be 11 commissioners on and 6 of them, and we created 6 officer positions, and we have a commitment to diversity. The combination of restrictions on 3 of the officer positions, the commitment to diversity does limit eligibility in a way that in my opinion, is too restrictive. I agree with that the commissioner who represents the mayor's office or the commissioner who represents city council or anyone who works in either of those 2 offices, it makes sense that they wouldn't be a co-chair because we're actually organized somewhat independently to give them advice and for to have that role in the hands of a city council member or a mayor's representative doesn't seem, I do believe that eligibility restriction is appropriate. But to say employed by a department in the city of Pittsburgh means that if you mow lawns for city parks, you would be ineligible. So I think it just was too broad. And I think that right now it does eliminate, from my observation, it would eliminate Marcus Robinson and Jim Hammond from the co-chair position, which I think is not because of them specifically, but they are real world examples for us right now. From being a co-chair, and I think that is puts us at a disadvantage because of the other matters that I already spoke to. So that's why I would, and other people obviously now can speak to it, but that's why I would encourage us to adopt this change. You've seen it, hopefully you read it, it's been sent out, but if someone isn't familiar with it, then, we can screen share it or something. I don't know that that's necessary. Let me know.
Do we have any other comments? Are we able to move to vote on amending the bylaws if we get someone?
If no one else wants to speak, then it's a vote at this point. But if someone
All
else
right.
wants to speak, they need to.
What
All
is
right,
there
well-
like a proposed new language? Did you send that out, Billy? Maybe and I missed it.
Yes, I sent it in the email 2 times. Once today, again today. There's an email. I can. I mean, it's pretty. I may be able to screen share it. Would you like that? It's not very long. It's very short text.
I can look at it on my computer, but if anyone else is interested to read it through.
So it amends this introduction to the co-chair. The boldface underline language would be the change, the new language. The struck through text is the existing. So what it does is in that, if you can see just below the boldface text, it's eliminating member employed, member meaning a commissioner, member employed by or representing any City of Pittsburgh departments or authorities, including offices held by elected officials. And this trims that, and trimming it thus expands eligibility. And it would be a commissioner who is a City of Pittsburgh elected official or employed by or representing a City of Pittsburgh elected official's office. So it would limit it to elected officials and their staff. Those persons would not be eligible if they were a commissioner to be co-chair. They're eligible for the other officer positions, treasurer, secretary, and outreach coordinator.
Thank you, Billy. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions at this point? Very good. Well, let's go to a vote then to update the bylaws to be more inclusive for the co-chair role. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I think I should abstain.
I would abstain as well, so long as if I understand, abstaining still counts towards quorum, though. If that's the case, then I abstain.
Yeah, abstaining does not interfere with quorum. Yeah.
Well, with that, we were able to update our bylaws, so that's great. So we'll make sure that those changes are reflected, and we'll make sure that that is communicated out as we are moving through our process of nominating and electing future co-chairs and other officer positions. Okay. So next up, we have unfinished business. We have no reports of special committees, so we'll move to unfinished business. First up in unfinished business is talking about implementing commission goals and just really emphasizing that these are the goals that are our priorities as a commission. Denise, I know you and I had a chance to chat. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to the conversation here about goals and next steps in terms of our process.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we just have to do is pick a couple goals. Yeah, I think Billy put a document together that outlined what we want to do. I think if we could just start out by doing some small goals, especially with Pride coming up, maybe we can, kind of do two things at once. Gather information, what's important to the community, be more visible to the community. I mean, some of those goals could be achieved. Let's just say if we had a booth at Pride, but I think we've got to just start executing something.
Thanks, Denise. I think the point is well taken that we've approved our goals. They're what we have committed to work on together collectively. And at this point, it would be helpful. I think one of the recurring themes for this evening is we need folks to engage and to participate and begin to start doing some of the work. And I think that certainly Sue and I can start that conversation and following up around a number of different topics, including attendance. But there also needs a collective call to action and some folks to step up and lead. And so that includes certainly those of us that are here tonight, but encouraging everybody to participate will be helpful. We need to get to a place where we have working groups and folks committed to working on these goals that we have approved with Denise's help and the rest of us contributing to that conversation as well. In terms of next steps for implementing goals, if I'm missing something, Sue and Billy, I don't know that we were expecting to name folks to specific goals and working groups around those this evening, but we certainly can start that process. But I didn't know if that was something we would do now or if we wanted to just add that to our follow-up with all of the commissioners.
I think it makes more sense to do that individually if we're going to, since we're doing that anyway.
Yeah.
A little bit more robust conversation, and we have a lot of other stuff to get through right now.
Great.
Let's have to put feedback into how we're going to do lots of this work. So
that sounds great to me. Okay, so next up, we also have unfinished business around COVID policies and socials. And so just really quickly, I was going to give an update here around current best practice from the City of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County Health Department, and the CDCs around guidance as we think about moving to potential in-person and what that means in terms of COVID policies. What I will do to expedite our conversation tonight and to move into more robust topics around Pride is just to send that update via email to folks to let folks know what that guidance is, because that's something that's likely to ebb and flow and change given where we are with case counts or other things that are happening. So expect that update to come via email. So following that, we have the meeting with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Sue, do you want to jump in and give this update? Was this you or was this Lenny and Billy as well?
I'll get started. We met last month, no, earlier this month, recently with a bunch of very important people from the Pirates. And I'm sorry, I don't have their names, but we'll make sure we send them out to you. I think, did we send the report out, Billy?
I think what we're eager to, but I don't think we actually did. I think we just needed more of a consensus on, does it capture it correctly? And so I was just waiting for feedback, but let's make sure that within the next 24 hours, we dispatch the notes from that meeting so all the commissioners have it.
I think overall, our sense as the away team on this is that the meeting went well. The people who were there were real deciders. They took responsibility on themselves for Big and Rich. They seem to understand the impact that decision had. They've already implemented some internal changes to prevent it from happening in the future. And my understanding is that we got everything we asked for plus a little more in terms of promises. Now, of course, whether that will play out has to be determined. But overall, I think it was a very productive and constructive meeting. And I hope that we're going to see that reflected in the Pride Night at PNC Park event next month. We'll see. Anyone else want to add on that?
I'll add in that I think that the thing that was notable, one of the things that was notable about the meeting was their very, even offering, but open commitment to communication between the commission and persons in the organization, so that the long delay in just getting the meeting, which there were reasons for it, although we didn't explore them that deeply, the long delay won't happen again, is the impression that I got. And one person said, I'll be the main contact, and that person is pretty high up, and you'll get her name in the notes.
Should we mention the request of the commission now about not taking gifts from the Pirates at this point? Billy, do you have language in front of you?
Give me a couple seconds. I'm not prepared with it, but I have it on my computer. I just have to pull it.
This is a recommendation from the away team, I'm just calling it, to the larger commission, and with regard to how we interact with the Pirates because this isn't finished. It's not, we had a good start, but nothing has really changed yet. So we put together a recommendation. I'm saying lots of words while Billy is getting it up so that we are.
I have it, Billy. Do you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't find you. All of you got hidden behind things. So that was my problem. You're going to again if I click on it again. But yeah, should I just read it? I don't think it's really easily readable on the screen by participants in Zoom. Is that what you would like?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so and this is a recommendation. It was discussed at the executive committee. And so what it says is the LGBTQIA plus commission and the Pirates organization are engaged in a discussion regarding the Pirates' decision to host Big and Rich at a PNC Park post-game concert on July 1, 2021. In spite of John Rich's well-known history of bigoted anti-LGBTQIA plus statements, racist remarks, and promotion of dangerous conspiracy theories, the executive committee recommends that LGBTQI plus commissioners do not accept from the Pirates gifts such as free tickets to the upcoming June 17 Pride Night baseball game. This non-acceptance of gifts does not extend to organizations that a commissioner may be associated with, should not interfere with existing organizations' participation in Pride Night, nor suggests that commissioners refrain from purchasing tickets to Pride Night or other Pirate baseball games. If your organization does accept tickets, parking vouchers, food vouchers, or invitations to private suites, the executive committee also recommends that the commissioner does not use them personally. The organization could consider distributing them to clients, other staff, or the community. Any commissioner who would like to attend the Pride Night game and would benefit from a donated ticket can contact the co-chairs, Sue and Sarah, and we will be able to procure one for you in a way that does not involve compromising our commission work.
Thanks, Billy.
And we will we'll send that out also to you in written form. That's and just to state it again, that's a recommendation. You all know what a recommendation means. That's a recommendation from the executive board. Thanks.
Thanks, Billy. And if anybody does want to go and needs assistance or knows other commissioners, certainly have them reach out to us. We're happy to help get tickets to folks. We don't want this to create a financial burden or barrier, but we do want to maintain good professional boundaries around this as a recommendation as we continue our relationship with the Pirates. So thank you for that. So we're going to move now into new business, the new business section of our agenda. And so first up is to talk about creating a commission working group around the what had happened in Chambersburg around repealing LGBT protections. So I'll ask Sue to jump in again here and talk us through what's going on and what we're proposing to do as a commission potentially.
Earlier this year, Chambersburg Borough repealed their non-discrimination ordinance, which had only been in place for, I think, 4 or 5 months. But they're the first municipality in the Commonwealth to do that. So that prompted me to suggest that we, as a commission, sponsor a training workshop, something of that nature, for local folks who would like to pass those kinds of ordinances in municipalities, ideally Western Pennsylvania, but really just anywhere in Pennsylvania would apply. And kind of a how-to. I know Lenny has a colleague who worked on an effort in Peters Township. It was not successful. Not successful can be very helpful in learning how to be successful moving forward. So there's a lot of the same kinds of talking points that happen here. It seems right in line with our work about government. And fortunately, the Pennsylvania Youth Congress already has a really great workshop that they offer. So this would not be a lot of complicated issues in terms of putting it together. It could be online, lots of people could come. And even if we get one more ordinance out of it, that's a win for whoever lives in that community. So what I'd like to do is recruit a couple of folks to work on putting this together. This would be probably, be the fall or something like that. Nothing's really defined at this point in terms of who could come or how they would come or when we would have it or anything like that. But I also want to step back. I also think it's important that we tap into the history that we have. Billy, Richard, Derek, other folks on this commission, but also other people outside of the commission who have a lot of the loss of Jim Furlow brings to mind, how things happened at a time when we didn't have the election of a Black lesbian to state representative and all that kind of stuff. So it's important that people understand, how we got to the point that Chambersburg is repealing an ordinance. So if anyone's interested in participating, I'm going to lead up just getting it organized. I'm not necessarily going to be the chair of that because I got a lot on my plate, but if you'd like to work on that, please contact me. And please, conversation, discussion, questions, suggestions.
So just really quickly, would we be allowed to bring in like Dan Frankel as part of this discussion, since he's many of our friends, and he is very important in Harrisburg in terms of trying to do statewide protection for the LGBTQ community.
There's no reason we couldn't have Dan Frankel or someone. And I do think that that's the larger issue there, is making sure people understand what's going on with the state. Absolutely. There's no reason we can't invite Dan Frankel or anyone really at this point. So
I don't have time to be one of the organizers, but I would definitely be a contact person to ask Dan to be part of this whenever there is a meeting scheduled, whatever that is scheduled. And we could throw out some dates for him too, because I think that would really elevate the importance of what we're trying to do.
And that brings to mind another issue, is that we could work with the state commission on this and maybe even have more impact. I mean, those are all kinds of things that the working group could explore. So thank you for bringing that up. And we're going to talk about Jim Furlow at some point toward the end of the meeting. Is that just acknowledging his passing? So
you're welcome to do that now, but we were going to put that in at the end with announcements as well. So I think either way works in terms of what's next.
Let's wait till we'll do it at the end, like we were going to. So that was my thought. Something constructive that we can do that's tangible, that's real. appropriate for our mission and forward momentum.
Very good. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sue.
I was just gonna say JAM, a CHR would be something that we'd consult with on this. It sounds like is everyone okay with this? Is there anybody that thinks it's not worth it? We're just exploring, so. And I'll reach out by email to see if anybody but we are gonna need volunteers. I mean, Marcus, Billy, Sarah, and I cannot do everything. So, and I know
No,
it's,
I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help. I think it's a good idea.
great, Denise, that's great. So,
I'd like to be involved too.
perfect. We got a committee. Woohoo! All right, let's move on to the next topic.
Thank you both, and thank you, Sue. So next up, we're going to transition into Pride and talking about Pride for the season. One of the things that we had talked about was just what is our capacity and bandwidth going into this season and understanding what's happening across the landscape. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a presence. And so we'll talk about a couple of the opportunities that we have related to some opinion pieces. So I'll start just to sort of switch up order of things. I'm going a little bit out of order, but I'll start by talking about the commission statement on Pride. So we have a couple of pieces that we want to get written on behalf of the commission. The first one is our statement on Pride. And this is something that we also want to have other people's voices and encourage folks to participate. So this is something that I'll be taking the lead on. So I'll start drafting a response for us to have a statement. This will need to move really quickly. So this statement on Pride is something that we want to get out by June 1st, or certainly end of May, beginning of June, so that we have something ready to go for the start of Pride Month. And so again, we're going to call for volunteers. If you are passionate about speaking to the importance and our statement on Pride for the season and want to be involved, please do. If there are folks who want to be involved, please let me know now so that I know as I'm drafting that response, I can make sure that you're included in the revisioning and edit process. And certainly if you need a little bit of time to think about it, that's fine too, but we definitely need more than just one or two voices to help us finalize this and get this published for June.
I could help with some input, but I'm not the best writer, but I'm good at reacting, so.
Thanks, Richard. Anybody else have any interest here?
I just have to say that's going to be a great T-shirt. I'm not a great writer, but I'm good at reacting. That's
awesome.
I think I like to be part of it just because sometimes I pay attention to ethnic and other community groups, and sometimes that is missed and is forgotten.
Yeah, great point, Guillermo. So I'll make sure that as I'm putting together some basic outline and information to process through, that I include both of you on that. And if other folks want to join in at some point, that's fine. Of course, we don't want to, have 20 people approving a document, but some balance will be good. So I think we have a great starting point. And again, if you want to contribute at any point, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll make sure we get this out in the next 20 days or so. 10 days or so. I see this is the second time math is hard for me today. So we'll make sure we get this done before June and ready to go. So the other piece for Pride that we wanted to talk about this evening is the Pride opinion piece. So again, this is back over to Sue to help us through this conversation.
Sue and Sarah are going to go on the road with this act at some point, I think, or Sarah and Sue. So when we ran the letter to the editor last month, I spoke to the editorial team about this idea and they agreed that the Post-Gazette would publish what used to be called an op-ed is more of an opinion piece now, and that we would talk about what the commission has accomplished. It's kind of a reporting out to the community through a very big mouthpiece, really getting into some of the history and also talking about what we've accomplished literally, since people don't, it's a chance for us to put that out there to people. It's only 900 words, but that's pretty big chunk for a newspaper. So they've agreed to publish that, and they would like to publish it on the last Monday of June. They don't publish on these kinds of things on Sundays, but they said Monday is a very, very busy day on their website. So it would not be a print edition, but it'll be accessible. I think it's a really good opportunity for us to tackle some of the questions people have been putting out about what are you doing, what's going on there, and at the same time, tapping into the power of Pride Month, but giving ourselves the whole month to write it. So that's kind of nice. So is anybody, again, I'll be happy to sort of take the lead on this, but we need some other people to participate. Now they will publish up to 3 names. So we can actually use, if 3 people work on it, it could be those 3 names, or it could be the 3 co-chairs. We don't have to decide that right now, but they will not list all the commissioners. That's just common practice, but they will list the commission as that it does represent the entire commission. And they gave me a little outline in terms of like how many words we should devote to which kinds of points. So if anyone's interested, Denise, in working on this, I didn't mean to say that. So tired. Yeah, we need some help. It's a really good opportunity, but if not, I'm going to send it to each of you for your feedback, because there'll be no other. I mean, I'm not being facetious. Like, I have to do that because we have to have. It can't just be something that I write.
Well, I'll help.
Okay, great. Anyone else wants to get involved? Let me know, and we'll send it for a formal review before we submit it, of course.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Billy, for offering to help. So that takes us to our last item of new business for the day. And so we need to talk about planning for in-person regular public meetings for our LGBTQIA plus commission meetings. And so the discussion here really starts with, do we meet in person in June? How are we feeling about meeting in person in June? Is this something we want to do, or stall and meet virtually again for another month? So I want to open it up for discussion with the group. What do we think about the option of meeting in person for our June monthly commission meeting?
If we could find a space, I would really encourage us to have an in-person meeting, depending on how the comfort level is of each of you. I don't want to force it on anybody, but I would feel comfortable at this point meeting in person. If we could find even an outdoor space, but we would have to record it and broadcast it, correct? Yeah, so it has to be within a Wi-Fi space. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, is there any possibility of us doing a hybrid meeting? I don't know what city council has set up, but it seems possible for them to call in people. So if we could do something hybrid, that might be an option for people who aren't comfortable meeting in person. And if I were to give my personal opinion, I'll just do whatever the group does.
I do know that there are some logistical challenges to recording and tech for this, and that will impact the next topic of conversation, which is where to meet. My understanding is that there may be some challenge to offering a hybrid option right away, but I want to defer to Billy here to jump in.
I did offer our space here at the Hispanic Corporation. Jen has seen the space, so it's very appropriate for a meeting like that. And we do have very high Wi-Fi connection here. So that's open there on the floor.
Thanks, Guillermo. The PHDC space is really beautiful and wonderful. I think that there's certainly a willingness and a desire to be in community space, but I do know that there are a number of technology challenges for the requirements for us to record and figuring out how we would navigate that. So again, Billy, if you don't mind jumping in here.
Yeah, and my experience with this is somewhat limited, but also is accrued by what, Sue and Marcus have also investigated. And I think that what the report is that they're not going to be able to live stream it if we do it a in-person meeting, particularly if it's not in one of their standard rooms in the city government, and that so it would limit it to being posted on the city channel sometime after the meeting, which is I don't see as an obstacle at all. I think it would be. I like the option of being out in the community and at Guillermo's organization space. I think that's great. I think the city needs to do a reconnaissance of your of your space, though, so that they know what to bring and what they need to do in order to make it work. I know they needed to do that when there was a city channel type thing done in our building here at the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers, which also has a large room that can accommodate meetings. So maybe sometime in the future, our space here could be one of the options too. And we have lots of parking. But anyway, I think that's all that I would want to add. I do think that the hybrid thing, I think there was a real concern about the ability to do that. But I think David Feiner is the person to give the details on that. I don't know if Marcus or Sue has received that from the city, but I remember reading in some emails among us about that.
I just want to say for the record that this is actually a city building where PHDC is located.
I didn't catch that.
The building where my organization is located is actually a city building owned. It's owned by the city. So we're technically hosted in a city building.
I don't know what the setup is of your space, but if he has a TV screen where we could log into Zoom,
Yeah.
the city wouldn't have to do anything different. We would just all be together on one connection.
Yeah, we do have a screen projector and a screen and a dedicated computer for when we do webinars and workshops. So that's something that has happened. Carnegie Mellon has hosted events here, and the University of Pittsburgh as well. So I think it wouldn't be any different from what we have already had here in the past, but I understand that they may have to check.
I think the city made it clear that we cannot do hybrid off-site, and that they would advise us to not do hybrid. That there needs to be some planning for that. That if we're going to do this in June, there's not going to be enough time to get that set up. So it would either have to, it's kind of an all or nothing right now. We as a group have to talk more about, do we want to meet in the community, and then how we're going to collect those spaces. I actually agree. I think I would love to meet at this space. I think that's a really good message to start off with. And I was going to ask you, Guillermo, is there, like, I haven't seen the space obviously, but could it comfortably accommodate 12 to 13 people with a little bit of social distancing?
Yes, it does.
Then and we could all wear masks, and
yes,
that would be, barring any surge in COVID, there wouldn't really be an issue with the space. It sounds like it's technologically fine.
And I also have a microphone with a speaker, so we usually use that. We actually have 2 wireless microphones so that sometimes people have to be speaking in different areas within the room. And we have 2 that are wireless and 2 that are wired. So in terms of people being able to hear in case they're separated in a certain way.
I can see the value symbolically of meeting in the city county building for the first time during Pride Month. I can see the value of meeting in a community at a space that has welcomed us and invited us and chosen to include us in their space. I'm leaning more toward that. But I'm fine meeting in person. as long as there's no other health concerns that pop up between now and then. And then maybe looking at hybrid down the road. Now, if it turns out not enough people are willing to come to an in-person meeting to meet quorum, then there's our answer for now. So this may be something that Sarah and I can address when we do the individual contacts with people to make sure that they're willing to do it. And because there's no
We could
sense,
definitely-
going through all this effort if it turns out not enough people will be there anyway. So
Yeah, absolutely. We can make sure that we talk to folks who aren't here, but just, wanting to hear from folks who are. Is there anybody who has any reservations at this current moment, knowing that things can ebb and flow and change? Is there anybody who has any reservations moving to in-person for June?
is 5:30 too early? I mean, it's fine if you're coming home or you're at work and you're getting on your laptop, but if you have to add in a commute and parking and all of that.
For me, it would depend on the location in terms of a live in person.
This is in Beachview.
Oh,
Yeah, across
That
the city. Yeah.
Two bridges.
Yeah. I just checked the calendar, June the 16th looks fine, totally okay for us. I'm not traveling until the following week, but in terms of our office, that day looks okay.
Great. Thanks, Guillermo.
That time, I was just say that time works for me. The only thing, just thinking about if we do a later time too, is just coordinating with INP to make sure we can still have someone record and we have staffing for it. If we still want to do that hour and a half, but otherwise I think we should be good. And I think the sooner if we were aiming for June for this to do at this place, I think just let me know so we can coordinate with IMP so they can take a look at the site, make sure they have everything and all of that stuff.
Well, it sounds like we're okay to move forward with trying to coordinate. Again, Sue and I will follow up with folks who are not here just to assure that we do have quorum and we can move forward with that. And we'll also do some digging into the logistical details and challenges. We can continue the conversation on Billy, go ahead. I was going to say we can continue the conversation on where to meet, but I do think there's going to be some guidance from the city that we're going to need to get first before we can confirm that it is possible to do this, even if we want to. But I think, hearing if you have an opinion that you want to share about a preference, certainly we can, that's really helpful information for us. And then we can go to the folks at the city to make sure that the tech aspects will be in place for what we need to do.
And if it's okay with you, I just wanted to say I'm going to hold the space for that day at that time unless people tell me that it's canceled.
Thanks, Guillermo.
My suggestion would be that we plan to meet in this space in June, and then maybe we should just go ahead and meet at CCB in July. So we can get that all ironed out and give ourselves a little bit of time to figure out where else we're going to meet, who has space, who can accommodate us, and kind of kill two birds with one stone. Does anyone object to that? All right. So we're not having the same conversation every month trying to plan where we're going to meet. That could get a little tedious. So
that sounds good to me. So Guillermo, I'll probably reach out to you just to talk, to connect with Dave from INP so we can set up to make sure they have everything and then go from there.
Yes, and when that happens, I'll just put you in contact with my administrator here who can just make sure
Perfect.
that they schedule a visit with the technical people.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you both. So that takes us to the final segment of our agenda for tonight, announcements. So does anybody have any announcements, Richard?
We skipped the new business, what the commission's relationship to Pride events would be. Can we have a really short discussion about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of all of these competing events and they're being organized by different organizations. So what does the commission feel about having tables and where the table would be, and what kind of information do we have ready to give out to people who would man these tables, all that kind of thing.
And I probably did not make this super clear when I first started talking about this, but I know one of the conversations that we were having on why we focus so much on the written statements was that we didn't feel like for this year we had the bandwidth as a commission to be in person at all of these events. And Sue, I don't want to take too much of what you might have said, so I'll let you jump in here too. You look like you wanted to join the conversation.
I just agree with that. We don't have anything ready. We don't have any staff. We don't have the ability to decide where to be and how to pick among them. And it just so fraught with possible harmful fallout that it seems like it's wiser to focus on what we can control this time. And if we just don't go to any event to table, then we're not offending anybody, or we're offending everybody equally. So either way.
I agree with you, Sue. I think that's a good way to handle it for this year, at least until we get much more organized. Thank you.
Anybody else want to contribute to this conversation? Very good. Well, thank you. Sorry about that and not making that more explicit as we were going through the agenda. So I'll hop back to announcements at this point and ask if anybody has any announcements in our last few minutes.
I wanted to recognize the death of former state senator, former city councilor Jim Furlow, who passed away this week. And I believe he was 70. I didn't know Jim personally, but I'm aware of his legacy. He was a very important force in LGBTQ and progressive issues in general. I think it's very telling that his obituaries focus on his work with relationships with Cuba and his attempt to save the Syria mosque. It kind of captures so well his unique approach, and also Pittsburgh, what we see, what we value here. Jim was a member of our community, and he came out a few weeks before he retired from the state Senate. So he was the only openly gay, openly LGBT person to serve in the state Senate in Pennsylvania. And it was something, I'm glad that he got the chance to have at least those few weeks like that. So, and I know that some of you knew him, but I just thought it was important, since we would not be here in this commission if Jim were not on city council in the 90s. I believe that firmly. So we owe him a great debt.
And I know Billy knew him really well. And Jim actually was, when I came to Pittsburgh 50 years ago, he was one of the first people I met, and he was a community organizer in the best of ways. Getting into all that good trouble. When people talk about that, he was involved in everything about Oakland and trying to essentially control growth and gentrification with Pitt, taking over a lot of the community. And so it wasn't the fact that he was part of the queer community, he was part of the community. And then it just grew from there that he just happened to be gay, and so he really fought for us, and Billy can tell us about how he helped our community when he got to Harrisburg and what he did. But he was a good friend and very funny, and sitting on the line at Syria Mosque was, of course, to me, the highlight of knowing him, while destruction was abounding and the wrecking ball was literally coming over his head. So he will be really missed. So.
Yeah, I'll add that he will be really missed. I think I heard the news on Sunday, of course, as we all did. It was also the day that I heard the news about Urvashi Vaid, the former director of at the time it was called the National Lesbian Gay Task Force. So it was kind of a sad weekend that these, they were two very different people in very different places. But they were both in some ways so much alike because they were, I don't even know if they knew each other, but they were absolutely committed to human beings, not just our community, but I think you said it beautifully, Richard. There was a vote on the amending the civil rights legislation in Pittsburgh in 1988, and he voted in favor, and it failed on a tie when Dwayne Darkins changed his vote. No, it wasn't Dwayne. It was that Dwayne was he abstained in the later one. I forget the name of the man, but I'll remember it at some point. And then he voted again in 90 when it passed. And he voted in favor of the transgender language that happened. I think it was in 97 when the definition of gender was, they did exactly what the Supreme Court did later. Pittsburgh was a couple decades ahead of the Supreme Court in terms of its thinking on gender and protections for on the basis of gender identity and gender expression. But Jim Furlow, he was an advocate for working poor people, housing advocate. They're a woman's right to choose to have an abortion. All the things that you would expect someone would be who, if you could craft someone on the right side of things, anti-war activists, just charged out after the buildup, just criticized the buildup towards war, the fever towards war after 9/11. He was, when people were like, really, would a politician even say that now? After there was so much, that time was just so militaristic, and he got to the podium and would say it wherever we should not be doing this. And he was terrific, and he was so kind to everybody he met. His kindness towards me, I'll never forget. I'm sad that he's gone.
Billy.
I just want to share with the group quickly that the Hispanic Corporation is hosting the Mexican Consulate on June the 11 and the 10 and the 11. Just in case you happen to know anybody who may be, I'm sorry, the 11 and the 12. Just like to spread the word sometimes for these kind of things.
I think Jim Furlow would have loved that segue.
Indeed.
That was his style.
Can I make a comment now, Sarah? Is that okay? It's important to acknowledge that we have reelected in the primary, and we all know how that works in Pennsylvania, the first openly bisexual woman from Western Pennsylvania who's also autistic to serve in the state general House of Representatives. I can't get that out. General Assembly. And it was a hard-fought race, but we have also are probably sending our first openly Black lesbian representative as well. Latasha Mays won her primary, and I was starting to write a detailed list of who, what, when, where, and I thought about the fact that when I started my blog in 2005, there was no one openly anywhere, and now it's very complicated and nuanced, and that's wonderful. And unfortunately, some members lost their races, but members of our community. But I think just knowing Latasha in general, I just think that that's just going to be a really amazing mix up there. But we have two women representing Western Pennsylvania in the General Assembly who are both part of the queer community, and that's just amazing to me. So congratulations to their campaigns, and also to all of us who get to benefit from their work.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Well, we're a few minutes after 7. I just want to do one last call for announcements before we move to adjournment. I will just beg one more second of your time and just clarify in terms of our relationship to Pride events that while we are not officially participating as a commission in any tabling, that we are still strongly encouraging folks to engage in Pride and to hear from community and receive feedback from community that will help us in our roles as commissioners. And so we want to make sure that that is not interpreted as don't go to Pride events. It's just a matter of we don't have the capacity to officially be there, but it's a really helpful opportunity to connect and engage with our communities that we're serving. So anyway, with that, I'll move to adjournment.